Okay, what we're about to break down is not just another story about a data breach. This is something else entirely. We're going to dive deep into a meticulously planned, state-sponsored cyber attack that quietly took over an entire nation's 5G network. This is the story of how they pulled it off, and more importantly, what it means for a new kind of warfare.
First things first, we need to get one thing straight. You have to forget that Hollywood image of a hacker. You know, the one frantically typing green code on a black screen. The real threat, the kind we're talking about here, is a whole different animal. They don't smash through digital walls with brute force. No, they're patient. They're silent. And they could live inside your most secure systems for months, sometimes even years, without a single person knowing they're even there.
And when I say months, I really mean it. In this Singapore attack, the forensic teams found out the attackers had been inside the network for over 280 days. Think about that. For more than 9 months, they were ghosts in the machine with total access to one of the most advanced digital infrastructures on the entire planet.
So this brings us to the big mystery, right? How on earth did this happen? We're talking about 4 massive telecom operators, all armed with the most expensive, top-of-the-line defenses money can buy. Things like next-gen firewalls and super advanced endpoint detection systems that are designed to spot any weird behavior. So how did all of them see absolutely nothing for 280 straight days?
Well, the answer is in a strategy that is as brilliant as it is terrifying. It's called living off the land, and this is the secret to how they became invisible. Instead of bringing in their own malicious tools, their own weapons, they just used the network's own tools against itself.
Let me walk you through their kill chain. It was just so methodical. First, they found an easy way in, an open door through some unpatched VPN gateways. Simple enough? Second, they hid their tracks by running their code directly in the server's temporary memory, the RAM. This means nothing gets written to the hard drive, so there's no evidence left behind. Third, and this is the really clever part, they moved around the network using legitimate administrator tools, stuff like PowerShell. To all the security software, this just looked like a system admin doing routine maintenance. And finally, they reached the very brain of the operation, the 5G core and the SIM identity servers. These are the systems that control everything, and they had seized control.
You see, this was never a brute force attack. It was a pure intelligence op. By using the system's own trusted tools, they blended in perfectly. They were completely invisible to the defenses designed to stop them. It's like they didn't need to break down the door, because they already had the master key and were strolling down the hallways wearing a guard's uniform.
But believe it or not, that living off the land strategy was only half of the story. The other half involves a hidden weakness, one buried deep inside our ultra-modern 5G networks. It's kind of like a ghost from the 1970s that came back to cause a modern-day catastrophe.
So, let me introduce you to something called SS7. This is a core telecom protocol that, to this day, still runs the world's phone networks. Here's the kicker. It was designed way back in 1975. This was an era when the entire global network was just a handful of state-owned telephone companies that all trusted each other. And that, right there, is its fatal flaw. It was built on a foundation of absolute, unquestioning trust. And this is the heart of the problem, isn't it? You've got this ancient protocol, this relic from an era of gentlemen's agreements, trying to survive in today's world of relentless, state-sponsored cyber warfare. It's a system literally designed for trust, operating in an environment of total distrust. And the attackers, well, they exploited this perfectly.
So what could they actually do with this outdated protocol? Well, by basically faking their identity, they could just ask Singapore's network for whatever they wanted. They intercepted 2-factor authentication codes being sent to government officials and diplomats in real time. They used cell tower data to track the physical, street-level location of their targets. And the most chilling part? They did all of this without ever having to install a single piece of spyware on their victims' phones. The network just handed over the information.
Now, SS7 was great for targeted attacks on individuals, but for mass surveillance, they needed a much bigger weapon. So they turned to another ancient protocol, BGP, the Border Gateway Protocol. You can think of BGP as the internet's global GPS. It tells all the data packets where to go to get to their destination, and the attackers found a way to poison it. They pulled off what was essentially a massive digital heist. They poisoned the internet's roadmaps, convincing all the routers that the fastest, most efficient path for data, leaving Singapore and heading to the US, was, well, a little detour through servers in Beijing. Huge amounts of national data were just siphoned off, copied, and then sent along their merry way. Nobody was the wiser. So you have to ask, what was the point of all this? This clearly wasn't about stealing credit card numbers or personal info. When a global superpower focuses this much time and resources on the communications hub of Southeast Asia, you can bet the objectives are geopolitical. This wasn't just a hack, this was a military drill.
Intelligence assessments boiled it down to 3 crystal-clear military goals. First, cyber cartography. They wanted to create a detailed, perfect map of Singapore's network so they could paralyze it in a potential conflict. Second, they were planting logic bombs, leaving behind little bits of dormant code in critical hardware, which could be triggered remotely to physically destroy the network. Just brick it on command. And third, they were testing a theory.
They needed to know if they truly had the power to sever an entire country's connection to the outside world. And after 280 days of quiet work, the conclusion of their little exercise was, well, clear and absolutely terrifying. The question they were testing was this: could they overload the 5G core and plunge an entire modern country into an absolute communications blackout in a matter of seconds? And the answer, proven by this exercise, was a definitive, unambiguous yes. So what does this all mean for the rest of us? For the rest of the world? I mean, the fall of what everyone considered an impenetrable digital fortress. That sends a historic message. It sets a completely new set of rules for survival in this digital age. And that message is this: the old idea of castle and moat cybersecurity, the theory that you can just build a big wall around your network to keep the bad guys out, that era is officially dead. That whole model failed spectacularly here. The attackers didn't have to go over the wall, they were already inside, walking the halls. And listen, if a unified, modern, high-tech state like Singapore is this vulnerable, what do you think that means for other nations? Many of them suffer from what analysts call technological Frankenstein syndrome. It's this messy, chaotic mix of old and new hardware from different vendors in different countries. It creates these massive, gaping security holes. And when a telecom network gets compromised, we're not just talking about data anymore. It becomes a physical threat, giving attackers potential control over critical infrastructure, your oil refineries, your power grids, your water supply. So what's the path forward? The old playbook is obviously out the window. So here are the new imperatives for survival. Number 1, move to a zero-trust architecture. That means you trust nothing by default. Every single connection has to prove it's legit, even if it's already inside your network. 2, you need AI that hunts for suspicious behavior, not just known viruses. It looks for stuff that just seems out of place, like an admin tool being used at 3 a.m. from a weird location. 3, microsegmentation. This basically traps a breach in one small area, so if an attacker gets in, they're stuck in a digital room and can't spread. And finally, we've got to start preparing for the quantum computing era, because the computers of tomorrow will shatter today's encryption like glass. We have to be ready. What happened in Singapore proved one thing beyond a doubt. On the global digital map, there are no neutral countries anymore. And this leaves us with one final, pretty stark question that every organization and every nation now has to answer for itself. In this new Cold War, are you equipped with cyber armor, or do you simply cease to exist?